Hello and welcome to the Power of Podcasting, the podcast that's designed to help you spread your message, advice, and stories in order to maximize both your impact and your income. I'm your host, Nick Palkowski, and now it's time to learn about the power of podcasting. Nothing is more important to you as a podcaster, as someone who's looking to grow your online business, grow your online platform, than the relationships that you have with your audience, than the tribe that you're trying to create. And today's guest is going to help us find that tribe, find the tribe that is right for you, and really grow that to something very meaningful, some way where you can really share your message and your insights with the world. Because today we're going to be talking to Jeff Goins. Jeff is a full-time writer who lives just outside of Nashville, Tennessee with his wife, son, and border collie. He is the author of 4 books, including the national bestseller, The Art of Work. His website, goinswriter.com, has been visited by more than 4 million people from all over the world. And one of the big reasons I'm really excited about this episode is because I've known Jeff for a while, and we're going to be talking about, towards the end of the episode, talking about a course that he's created called Tribe Writers. I went through this at the very beginning, and really it's a course that's designed to help you create a tribe, create that community that is willing to follow you. It's all about creating those 1,000 true fans rather than just having, tens of thousands of mediocre followers. It's about creating people who want to hear from you, who want to learn your message, and are actually willing to share that with the rest of the world. They become champions of your message and go along there kind of waving the flag along with you. And this is so crucial when you're trying to really grow a business. So let's dive on into this interview with Jeff. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Nick. Glad to be a part of it.
And yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you because I've known you for a few years now. I remember back when you were kind of just getting known, and it's been amazing to see how your platform, your tribe has just grown over these years. It's been awesome.
Yeah, that's been fun too. I was actually thinking about that. I was thinking about like the first time we met in person, which I think maybe was at the platform conference, like the very first one.
I believe so. Yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
And and we met then, and I felt like we had known each other for a while, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're here. This is incredible. And that was back in the day. That was probably 3 years ago now. That was back in the day for me when meeting people from the internet still felt like something new. And now probably like for you, that's such a commonplace thing. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's crazy. It seems like all my major friendships actually have started on the internet.
Yeah, like I think like a few years ago, you used to say, oh, like this is a person that I know from the internet, right? And now this is just a person that I know. It's just my friend. Yeah. And my wife will sometimes, who's not like, she's into Facebook and stuff, but she's not into this kind of, this level of depth of online interaction. She uses, the internet to not make new friends, but to stay in touch with old friends. And so she'll still sometimes say, well, how do you know that person? Like I run into somebody or they'll text me or whatever. And I go, well, I know them from the internet. Like how I know everybody today, like I don't distinguish between this thing that we used to call real life and internet life. It's all kind of, bleeds seamlessly together.
Yeah. And what do you think really was the switch? Why did that happen? Why did that switch kind of happen?
I don't know. That's interesting, right? I mean, I remember reading a blog post years ago by this guy named, I think it was Kevin Hendricks. And he basically predicted this. This was probably 8 years ago, that eventually there would be no distinction between online life and offline life. And this is before you could, probably order a pizza online and order your toilet paper online and your diapers and all kinds of things. So I think some of it was that. I also think this isn't true for everybody, but it's true for guys like you and me and probably a lot of people listening to this show. It's just realizing that the life that you live on the internet doesn't have to be a facsimile of the life that you live offline. It can be an extension of it. And for me, when I just started running into people kind of by surprise, like I ran into you at a conference, I was like, oh, I already know you, but I'm meeting you for the first time. And I think after that happens enough times, you realize this isn't fake life. This is real life. It's just, supplemented by technology. I recently heard Gary Vaynerchuk talk about this on an interview that he did, where lots of people are saying, "Oh, everybody's like on the phone all the time and in their devices and not tuned into real life." And he said, "Yeah, but like they're on that phone talking to somebody or texting somebody or connecting with somebody. And if you're in like New York City or even in Nashville, where I live." You're walking down the streets. People aren't like walking up to other people saying, "Hey, how are you?" Giving people high fives. They're not interacting with people on the street. They're just trying to get to where they're going. I mean, you might run into somebody and you might say hi to them. But if you were in your phone, you would do that anyway, I think. And so he had this really optimistic look about, how technology isn't just interrupting us, and certainly it's doing that. But in some ways, and I believe this is true, it's facilitating more interaction. It's making us more social, not just online, but also offline. And it's done that for me, certainly.
Yeah, and I think that's such an excellent point, and I completely agree. And that's, I think, something that for people like us, people who are building a platform, creating a little community, I think that is even accelerated compared to the rest of the population, because really that's what you're doing as a writer, as a blogger. You are, connecting and building relationships with people on more of a mass scale.
Absolutely. And people misunderstand the internet. I think they think it's one to many, and it can feel that way. But really, even right now, we're having a one to many conversation or a two to many conversation where you and I are having a conversation and other people are listening in on that conversation. But really, and I think Seth Godin said this, the internet is really, it's a direct media channel. It's like direct mail. It's not like television. Television is something that you broadcast to the masses, and the way that you communicate that message is it's very vanilla. I mean, if you think about primetime evening television, even today, but certainly when we were growing up, 20, 30 years ago, it was not the best art. It was not the best storytelling. It was just the stuff that, it was good enough that most people would like it, but not weird enough that, it would turn most people off, and it was watered down for the masses. The internet is not that. It's all about connecting with individuals. And if you connect with enough individuals over time, you have a tribe. And so in that respect, it's not one to many. I think it's one to one. It's just one to one scaled. So right now, the person listening to this is not, they don't think of themselves sitting in a stadium like, with 10,000 other people tuning into this. They think this is for me right now. And if it's not, I'm going to tune into something else. And I think that's the thing that people misunderstand about the internet and about social media, and also the thing that makes it so powerful, is it's allowing individuals not to connect with masses of individuals like you would in a concert stadium, but really to connect with another individual. And if you do that enough times, as you mentioned, you've got something really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And it's such a great point. How do you actually go about making sure that you don't get caught up in thinking of this, what you're doing, the writing that you're putting down, as communicating to the masses, but how do you stay focused on communicating one-to-one?
There's all kinds of tricks for this. Some people say that you should, like imagine your ideal avatar, which for me is not this like 8-foot tall blue woman with a tail.
I know, that's what I always think of.
You're supposed to like write down like, this is the person that I'm writing for. So I think that's a useful trick. I never really did that. What I like to do is write for my past self. So if I'm 32 years old now, and I kind of got started with this like roughly 5 years ago. That was probably before I really got into blogging and things started to take off. But I was an aspiring writer. I wanted to communicate my message with the world, even though I didn't even know what that message was. I just didn't know how to do that. And I had the wrong mindset. I had a lot of things wrong with me. Wrong mindset, wrong discipline, wrong tools, wrong everything. And so when I write a blog post now, or when I do a podcast now, or when I do a speaking gig, or even write a book, I'm thinking, what are the things that 28-year-old, if I'm doing my math right, the 27, 28-year-old Jeff Goins, what does he need to hear right now to save him a lot of time and pain? And so I think that it's helpful to figure out, who are you writing for? I know some people write for their Aunt Susie or their best friend Danny, but really think about it as one individual. And podcasting is the same way. I heard a great tip from Jeff Brown, who did 25 years of radio broadcasting, and he said the number one thing that podcasters do wrong is they say, "Hey guys," or "Hey y'all," and he goes, "That's not the experience that the audience is having with your message. It's really, they're experiencing it as, this is me." And so if you speak to the audience directly and you say, "If you're listening to this right now, feeling this way, I want to encourage you to do da-da-da," like that feels way more direct than, "Hey, all of you guys out there." So I think there are ways to, stay focused on the individual. But for me, it really comes down to writing or speaking to or communicating with my past self, and then realizing that I'm not that special. That if I'm one in a million, which is something nice that my mom told me, the reality is if there are 7 billion people in the world, the way the math shakes out, I think, because it's never been my strong suit, is that means there's something like 7,000 people in this world who are just like me. And I know it's just a saying, but a million used to be this huge number where we thought, man, if you're one in a million, there's nobody like you. And that's just not true. I keep bumping into people on the internet, hundreds of thousands of people, in fact, who say, "Oh, I'm just like you. I needed to hear that." And what I'm really doing is just writing for myself. I'm just telling myself the things that I thought I needed to hear 5, 10 years before. And so I think that's a powerful way to communicate, where you're really talking to one person, but we're not that different. At least in terms of the things that make you unique, your characteristics that make you a special and beautiful snowflake. There are other people like you. And the power of a blog or a podcast or whatever is you can put that out there basically for free and allow people to discover it. And they realize, wow, I'm not the only one. And as the communicator, you get that feedback and you go, wow, I'm not the only one. And I think it's a really beautiful and wonderful exchange.
Oh, that's awesome. And Jeff, what I love about just that perspective of you just kind of talking to yourself a few years down, like, you're just a few steps ahead of yourself, your, community, is that, it's really that true definition of an expert, or you're not necessarily the one who knows all the answers. You're just slightly further down the path than your audience. And I just love that approach.
It's interesting. I don't think of myself as a guru, but I am an older brother. So I'm 32. I've got a couple of sisters in their 20s, and I've got a younger brother who's 13 now. And so we've got a big, broad range of, total of 19 years of siblings, between the four of us. And I've always been the older brother by 7, 10, or 19 years for each of my siblings. And so I've always been the one giving out advice. But now that my siblings are growing up, especially my sisters, they're adults now and they have jobs. And I'm, I'm far enough ahead that I can say, hey, be sure to watch out for this, like a trail guide or something, where you're a few steps down the line, but like you haven't mastered the trail. Like you're just a few steps ahead and you go, hey, watch out for this. I think there's something really powerful about that. There's authority in that kind of voice. And like I said, it happens to be natural for me because I actually am an older brother. But you're a few steps ahead, but you're not so far ahead like a grandpa where you go, okay, like that's great for you, grandpa, but that was 50 years ago and things have changed. There's both authority and also a certain amount of empathy or compassion where you can still relate to the struggles of your audience.
Yeah, and I also think it's for you as the communicator, it just frees you up more too, because I can actually remember. Actually, it was shortly before I found out about you and started following some of your work, is that I used to actually get almost paralyzed by thinking that I needed to have all the answers, needed to know all, like what the right thing to do was before I could actually communicate to my audience. And that was just stopping me from producing any sort of value, any sort of content for that audience.
Yeah, that'll kill you. But I'm glad that you overcame that, Nick.
Yeah, and it was definitely, like I said, a lot of the work that you do that actually kind of helped me realize that shift needed to happen. So, Jeff, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how did you actually, like just a little while ago, you mentioned that you went through all these mistakes. You didn't have a lot of things right at the very beginning. what if you could go back in time and start over? What are maybe one or two things you would do as someone who's starting a brand new platform, creating a brand new tribe? Because many of our listeners are just starting out, and they're still at the very early stages. So how would you go about actually approaching that?
So I just put together this video, Nick, of me basically ranting about the things that I think people are lying about on the internet. And I don't know what your inbox looks like, but mine, basically is filled with a bunch of taunts and teases and promises of a better life. You can make $50,000 in the next 2 months. You can become a best-selling author, a popular speaker. You can build $1 million business in 11 seconds, and live on a, Pacific island for the rest of your life. And I actually know people who've done all those things, and I've done some of those things, but the way in which these promises are communicated just feels untrue to me. And if I could go back and talk to myself, 5-10 years ago, I would basically say, don't believe this. Here's what it's actually going to look like. Success is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth the journey, the climb, the struggle, the hard work. But I think a lot of people are just saying, hey, this is easy. You can make a bunch of passive income and retire by the time you're 12 and everything's going to be easy. And I actually don't think that's what we want to hear. I don't want to hear that life is going to be easy, that work is even going to be easy. I want to hear that it's good. I don't want to hear that it's taxing or full of despair. But there's something good about something being difficult and challenging. It makes you realize that you've got to fight for it and that there's value to it. So I would say this isn't going to be easy. The second thing I would say is nobody really cares about you. This was the thing that I was mistaken about. I thought if I put words on a blog, about my latest rant or frustration or thing that I ate for dinner, that people would care. And people don't care until you do. And I think you have to care first. You have to lead by demonstrating value. People care about things that they get something out of more often than not. And so if you want to be heard, if you want people to pay attention to you, you need to go out of your way to do something that's going to add value, like you're doing, Nick. You're not just talking about, hey, here's some things that I think, and you should just listen to them. You're going out of your way to add value to your audience, and people respond with their attention, which I think is a gift, not a given. There's this belief, I think, that we have, especially younger generations, people that have grown up with social media. There's this expectation that I deserve to be listened to because I'm special. Yes. And the truth is there's just so much noise out there that's not going to happen. The third thing that I would tell myself, because I'm a good older brother, I think, is, and these are all kind of harsh things, I guess, but they're important to hear, is that the world doesn't owe you anything, and I think that when I was in my mid to late 20s, I felt like I deserved something. I felt like I deserved to, write a book and for people to buy it because I had some stories to tell or some things to say. And I was just waiting for people to notice. And I know a lot of people today who are still just waiting for somebody to notice because they think they're good or talented or special. And that may be true, but the bottom line is that's not enough. You have to add value. You have to demonstrate that you have something to share. You really have to prove yourself, and that takes a lot of hard work, and it really requires you to go out to where people are already connecting with ideas and be a part of that conversation. And for me, that took on a lot of different shapes and forms. It's why I have a podcast today, because that's where a lot of people are consuming content. I want to be where the conversations are happening so that I can connect with those people, build trust with them, and eventually get to say, hey, here's an idea. Here's something that I feel is somewhat original or interesting that I want to add to the conversation. But none of that stuff's a given. It all has to be earned, and it took me a long time to learn that.
So, Jeff, what do you actually call yourself nowadays? Because like you mentioned, you have a podcast, you're putting together these courses, you're writing books. Do you still, what is almost the title that you give yourself?
Well, the title that I give myself is usually I stutter over my words. Nick, I still think of myself as a writer. At the core of everything that I do is writing. So if I'm going to do a podcast or write a book, of course, or deliver a speech or do something on Periscope, I'm spending a lot of time doing kind of these live video interactive things because there's so many tools out there. Nobody knows which of these is going to stick around.
Right.
I'm writing notes to myself. I'm not scripting it out, but I'm writing before I talk. And for me, this is still the way that I process ideas. It's still the way that I capture things that happen to me or around me. I was on a plane this morning flying back home from vacation with my wife, and I pulled out my phone and I wrote about 800 words, just kind of riffing on this thing that we were on vacation. We were in Paris, and I got inspired, being in Paris. And so I wrote this thing down because it's still the way that I process experiences. And so for me, writing is the craft. Writing is the thing that I do and will hopefully always do. Everything else, though, is a channel for the message. But yeah, so I call myself a writer / entrepreneur / other things. But really, in terms of what I do, what I'm trying to do is help people understand that they have a gift that needs to be shared with the world. And I'm trying to help them figure out how to do that. And so I'll use whatever channel I need to do to get in front of people. But at the end of the day, for me, the craft is still writing. It's sitting down, pounding out the keys and figuring out what I want to say and then plugging it into those different channels. And I still think writing is really powerful. It's still the most universal way to communicate, across the web. Tim Ferriss told me once, nothing travels as quickly as text. And I thought that was, interesting with video and audio and all these different things. And there's pros and cons to all of these. But I love the beauty and the power and the simplicity of the written word. And like I said, for me, it is the thing that kind of fuels all of these other outlets.
And it really is like an art, it's such a thing that needs to be crafted, that needs to be honed, that takes some practice. So many people can jump up on stage, and while there's still a lot of art there, but writing, for whatever reason, maybe it's just me, but it seems to be such a different level of skill set that you have to actually work at it consistently.
Yeah, well, I do think it's true. I mean, speaking is a whole other thing, and I do some of that, you do that, and like I haven't scripted out this conversation, hence the ums and I knows, and it's going to turn out hopefully okay. But there's something about having the words in front of you that I think makes you want to get them right. And to be fair, the best speakers I know are very meticulous about their craft. But yeah, I agree. There's something really interesting about having those words in front of you. Speaking can be really spontaneous. Writing is not so much that way, at least not for me. It's this thing that you do over and over and over again to get just right. And that can it can be really good, but it can also drive you crazy.
So Jeff, have you ever had trouble charging for any of your work, any of your writing?
Yeah, I have trouble. Yes, I have trouble with all of that. I think there's lots of different schools of thought on this, right? Some people think that you shouldn't, do a free gig ever. And I think that's unrealistic, especially with the way media has gone. It's hard to get paid to write. Not impossible. I mean, somebody just offered me $1,500 to write a Medium post the other day. So I was like, oh, wow, people still pay for writing gigs. That's cool. So if you're a writer or you want to write and you're thinking, oh, I could never get paid to do that. Well, that's not true. But at the same time, waiting to get paid to share your work with the world may not be the best path to building an audience. For me, writing is the vehicle to get people's attention. And once you have people's attention, charging for something is the easy part. The hard part is getting people to know who you are. Because if somebody knows your name, because you've published a book or you're a sought-after speaker or you have this thing that everybody likes talking about, which is a platform, then getting paid is not hard because where there's attention, there's value. So it is hard for me still to get paid because there's an artistry to writing where I go, oh, like, I don't want to have, I have to get paid to do this, but there's still a purity, to that where I go, this isn't about the money, but I'll take your money because the money gives me opportunity to create more. And it's just a different mindset. People have different ways of approaching this. I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but for me, I subscribe to the Walt Disney ethos of creativity, which is, he said that we don't make movies to make money, we make money to make more movies. And so I don't get paid. I don't write books to get paid, but I get paid to write more books, to write more blog posts. Most of the writing that I do, I don't get paid for. All of my blog posts are free. A lot of guest posts and articles that I do, all my podcasts are free. I don't get paid for these gigs, but the attention that people have given me in exchange for, the gift of sharing some of those words, that's really, really valuable. And so, through online courses and through speaking gigs and through, book deals and stuff, because I have that attention, there are ways to get paid, once in a while to make it all worth it. And the money buys me enough time to go create the next thing.
Yeah, I think that's such an excellent point, because I know even in our community here in Madison, I see several artists who, specifically painting wise, do a great job, but are barely making any money because they're not willing to charge enough for their paintings. So they're barely able to live. They have to get side jobs, which just takes them away from that art, which I think is a disservice to everyone.
I agree. Yeah. Don't hear me saying, don't get paid. You need to get paid because money buys you time. Yeah. And if you're working 2 jobs, going to bed at 1 a.m. every morning and getting up at 6, you don't have time to create your best work. And so being able to sell your work and being tenacious about that, even disciplining yourself to do that, is really, really important. But if you struggle with that, I'm there with you. I think there's something really important about that, about holding on to seeing art as a gift, as Lewis Hyde calls it. And he talks about that in his book called The Gift. And it's a really interesting and practical book where basically he says art is a gift that you give to the world. And there's something really beautiful and pure about that. And that's why you struggle when somebody tells you you have to sell your art. And that's a good struggle. But in that tension, you've still got to find a way to make a living. I learned a long time ago that there's different ways to do it, but you don't have to necessarily make people pay you for your work. You can, however, let them. And I was so nervous about charging people money for anything that I didn't do it for an entire year. I wrote a blog post a day. I gave away ebooks. I did all kinds of stuff, webinars. Everything was free. I wrote 400 articles that year for my blog or other websites. It was all free. And then I was like, well, I need to make money. We were getting ready to have a baby, and I was like, what am I going to do? I got to buy diapers. Yeah. And my wife wanted to stay home, and we couldn't afford that. And so I was trying to figure that out. And at the end of the year, I gave away another ebook, and somebody emailed me and said, hey, this is really great that you've given all this free stuff, but can I pay you for something? Like, can I give you money? Because I'm getting so much value, I want to give you money. And so people sometimes ask me, like, when do you get to charge money for stuff? And there's all kinds of thoughts on this, like, don't give away too many things for free because then you can't charge for them. I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to the model of give so much that people want to give back to you. And this is what Lewis Hyde calls a gift economy, that if you give, it creates this sense, with the other party, the other person, that, the people that you're connecting with, this reciprocity, this desire to kind of set the scale equal. And a gift economy works if you give, and I give. We don't give so that we can get, but if you give and I give and everybody gives, everybody benefits. And if a bunch of people take, that doesn't work. And if a bunch of people give and some people take, that doesn't necessarily work. But if everybody's giving, it works. And so with what I do, we get blogging, podcasting, I'm trying to give content. People give me back their attention. And then there's opportunities. There's times when I go, okay, here's this thing that does cost money and you don't have to get it. And lots of other things are going to be free. But if you've really benefited from this work, you can give back in this way by buying my book. Some people, let individuals or, crowds of, communities sponsored podcasts, just donating to their blogs and their podcasts. Some of the biggest, most popular blogs and podcasts today are just really run not by selling things, but by generous communities supporting the work that they do. That's what I'm talking about. If you do good enough, interesting work, it will create an opportunity where you don't have to make people pay you, but you can let them. And I think that that's an important distinction. And so those people who, those painters who are creating art and they're never letting people pay them, they are doing a disservice both to themselves and to the world because things do cost money. And without that income from the work that you're doing, you're going to have to go find it somewhere else, which is going to take time away from the work that you should be doing and placing it where it doesn't need to be.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. So, Jeff, you've really built one of the best courses around actually teaching people how to gain that audience, find their tribe, and create that community where you can give that value away, where you can give things to people, and then really grow your audience, grow your income. And this is a course that I actually had the opportunity to, I think I was in the very first one that you opened.
I think so.
Several years ago. And it's one I actually go through every so often, kind of go through and re-listen to all the videos, just to kind of stay up on it. Because I think you give away a ton of strategies on really how to hone your voice and how to expand your reach and really create that platform. And I just love that. And so I just want to spend the last few minutes here. If you would, tell us maybe a little bit more about this course. I know it's getting ready to open again soon.
Yeah, so Tribe Writers is a course that I teach a couple times a year now. We used to teach it more often than that, but it's really just once or twice a year. We open registration for about a week, and it's an 8-week course. And once you sign up, you as you mentioned, you can go through it again and again, but it's intended to be 2 months long. 4 modules, and like you said, we go from A to Z in terms of what do you want to say, who do you want to say it to, how can you say it, to let's get your work out there, build that tribe. We focus on 1,000 true fans, your first 1,000 email subscribers. I think everything changes after you get that initial milestone. Once you do that, you can make your first $1,000. You can start getting paid to share your message with the world, which I am not opposed to. I think it's really important, but it has to begin not with how can I get something out of this, but what do I have to give? And Tribe Writers is a process that has worked for me, and it's worked for thousands of other communicators using writing primarily and social media to build an online audience that can turn into influence and also income, so that you can get paid both with attention and also money to share your work with the world, and more importantly, communicate your message that you have, whether it's a story or it's fictional stories, novels that you're writing, or like you're doing, Nick, where you've got an inspirational message that you want to share with an audience that's going to help people. We help connect those messages and those people with the audiences that they were intended for.
Oh, that's awesome, because I really do think that everyone out there has some sort of message that the world could benefit from, and I think your course is helping people spread that, and I think it's phenomenal. So I just want to thank you for that. If people want to find out more about you, about your course, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, thanks for saying that, Nick. I appreciate it. The best place to go to find out more about Tribe Writers is to go to tribewriters.com. And you can, if the course is ready, you can kind of go through that material. If it's not ready, you can get on the waiting list and find out when we launch. Again, it is going to open up soon. We're actually doing a free teaching series. So if you're like, I don't know, I'd like to learn a little bit more, you can go to tribewriters.com/free. Sign up for a free 3-part video series. And if you go through that and get a lot of value out of that, and want to go apply those concepts, great. If you realize, oh, this is good, and I want to, go to the next level, and join Tribe Writers, you'll have an opportunity to do that as well. Go to tribewriters.com/free, and you can find out more about that.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being on this episode of the podcast. It's been awesome just talking writing, art, and platform growth with you. So thanks again for tuning in, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Thanks for being one of the very first Tribe Writers, and thanks for all the work that you do. It's fun to watch.
again, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. So I definitely want to know from you what your big takeaways were from this interview with Jeff. Simply shoot me a message. It can be an email, you can leave a comment on the show notes page by going to powerofpodcasting.tv and clicking the show notes button there, or shoot me a Facebook or Twitter message. I want to know, what did you learn from Jeff and what can you actually apply in your life today? Also, if you haven't done so, please go check out Jeff's course. He's got some great free training videos that are available right now. So head on over to yourpodcastguru.com/tribewriters, and you can find all the free videos there. And again, this is a great training that is designed to help you give you the foundations of what you need to create a tribe around your business, around your brand, around the platform that you are trying to create. And my big challenge to you this week is to actually go start creating that following of 1,000 true fans. In Jeff's video, his first training video, he actually walks you through the process that he used to start creating those fans. And I highly suggest you go and check that out and follow his process. It's a great one. It's a solid one. Many of you might already be noticing that I'm using some of it as I get ready to launch my book here, The Power of Podcasting, in the next month or so. So head on over to yourpodcastguru.com/tribewriters and get that first training video. So, all right, you have your challenge for the week, and now it's time for you to go out there, take action, and truly maximize your impact and your income.
If you're looking to grow your business using podcasting, but don't have the time to edit the audio, insert the intro and outro, write up the show notes, post the episode to all the different sites, and do all of the ridiculous back-end work that's required, then you need yourpodcastguru.com, where you bring the content and we take care of the rest. We'll even co-host the show for you. Visit yourpodcastguru.com right now to explode your audience and crush it in the podcasting world.